found herself alone at the bottom with no life preserver to hold. I wanted to tell her I'd been there before, and I used to feel like cutting, but I knew the blood would only make the sharks start coming.
I think the best way to start is to have them see spoken word in its very professional form. I mean, it's fantastic if you as a teacher want to do spoken word too, because I think the kids seeing you being vulnerable on stage is incredibly important. But I wouldn't necessarily recommend it on the first day, because you want to show really good people. And like, I love doing this, but I don't pretend that I'm as good as some of the people out there. So I always start with a documentary called Louder Than a Bomb. It was made about the Chicago High School Slam in 2008. And a slam is spoken word poetry, but competitive, which we do not do in my class, although my kids try and get me to do it. But that usually just means that the performances are really, really strong, and so it's a great way to start the conversation of what spoken word is, as opposed to the poetry you've been reading in 6th grade where everything rhymes and it's all crazy. And the very first poem assignment I give them is, again, different than anything they've probably ever seen before, and it is to do a found poem. So they have to create a poem based on using other people's words and their own. And I have found that's much less scary than saying, go write about yourself. Delve deep within 2 days of starting a poetry unit. So I structure it where they have to use 10 words from Harlem Renaissance poetry to inform their own poetry, and then they can also, cut any words out of magazines they want. It's nice because the Harlem Renaissance basis usually gives them a topic that's a little deeper than like the magazines would. I had them write a manifesto of their own beliefs, so like this I believe. That was fascinating. It was also really fun to examine like what does the word manifesto mean, and the idea that as an 8th grader they were going to write something that people were going to hear and it was going to be their belief system seemed really powerful to at least a few of them, because I think the great part about having an open mic in the evening, if it's something you can pull off, is giving them not only a voice, which you're doing through the poetry, but an audience for the voice. And so the idea that like their ideas are valuable and their beliefs, like a manifesto, are valuable is really, really, really strong. In the past, I have had 3 days available for open mics in class. They sign up for one of the first 2 days. Everybody goes in the first 2 days, and then the third day is a free-for-all voluntary one. And every year I have done that, it has taken the entire class period to do the free-for-all voluntary one. And it is partly because they know that their grade will get better, because they are graded on their oral performance, because there is an oral language component to grading. And also because they get on a roll. And it's the same kids who keep getting up, but the great part about spoken word, it is not the same kids who raise their hand every time. Like I've got kids who fade into the wall in history class, but who are up there in front of the mic every time in spoken word. So Common Core, I think, presents an interesting challenge. I'm actually not one of those people who's like all against it. I think it could be very useful. But I think it needs to be a structure and not a mandate. And I think there's a way to find, it's not even just a way to find a place for spoken word. I think spoken word fits it like a glove if you really look deeply into what the Common Core is asking, as opposed to the surface level, oh my gosh, I now have to do 70% nonfiction. Well, first of all, guess what? Most spoken word is nonfiction because it's autobiographical. So that's actually fantastic, because it's not what you expect nonfiction to be, but now you know you don't have to just teach science journals in the New York Times. I had a kid write a poem about his gay brother, right? That could turn into a fabulous research topic of so many different things. I had a poem that was written about a youth suicide of a friend. Again, epidemic in our country, there's a lot there. And all of these came from themselves, and we always talk about like research should be self-directed, they should pick their own topic. Well, frankly, if I hear another informative speech about like insects, I'm just going to stop assigning informative speeches. And so this way, it could be a topic that they again themselves pick, but they pick it for a reason. Like, not like, oh, there's this spider on my table today, let's look at that. It's, there's this thing in my world because it's in myself, let's look at that.
And yet as tenacious as the universe all-encompassing, receiving us. Teach me. I think the world would be a better place if we were all a little more like you, so teach me, little one.